After my rebirth, my entire family can hear my thoughts. Should I tell Mom that her beloved, adopted daughter is actually Dad's secret child? I watched Mom reach for the girl's hand. It trembled. Better not tell Marcus that Dad deliberately ruined his life. I saw my gaming-obsessed brother's phone suddenly burn in his hands. If Ethan knew Dad hired someone to harm his legs, would he be devastated? My wheelchair-bound oldest brother's hair seemed to smoke with rage. If they discovered Dad did all this just to marry his childhood sweetheart, will our family fall apart? The way everyone looked at Dad changed. All because I argued with our family's adopted daughter. Dad threw me out the 13th floor window. I passed away instantly, but I didn't disappear. My spirit followed Dad around, learning all his secrets. He married Mom for money. He already had a woman he loved, a woman who bore him a daughter, our adopted sister, Violet. From day one of his marriage, Dad plotted to steal Mom's family fortune, then run off with his mistress and precious daughter, to live happily ever after. But something unexpected happened. I was reborn back to the day Dad brought Violet home. Violet, say hello to your new mother, Dad urged, pushing her toward Mom. Violet trembled like a frightened bird, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Her exposed arms showed marks everywhere. This pitiful appearance made Mom feel instant compassion. She would treat Violet better than her own daughter, better than me. Terrified of mistreating her as Mom reached out to take Violet's hand. Did I tell Mom Violet is actually Dad's secret child? Mom's hand holding Violet's visibly shook. She looked around, finally settling her gaze on me. I blinked innocently back at her. Mom frowned, thinking she was hallucinating. Next, Violet will throw herself into Mom's arms, crying, earning her sympathy. The next moment, Violet buried herself in Mom's embrace, sobbing dramatically. In my past life, Mom was deeply moved and cried with her. This time she couldn't cry. Her eyes stayed fixed on me. Amber, are you speaking? No, Idania. I can't let Mom know I was reborn. She'll think I'm a monster. Mom's eyes widened like saucers, belief written across her face. Dad stepped forward, comforting Violet. Don't cry. This is your home now. He turned to me. Amber, show Violet to her room, okay? I agreed readily, thinking soon Violet will fall down the stairs and blame me. Sure enough, halfway up, Violet tumbled down the staircase. Dad rushed to catch her. Violet, what happened? Don't blame Amber. I slipped, Violet said painfully. Dad immediately snapped at me. Amber, Violet is your sister now. How could you target her? Have we spoiled you so much you'd do something this terrible? Mom walked over, noticeably less agitated than Dad. Violet quickly addressed her. Please don't scold Amber. I understand she can't accept me, yet she's been the only daughter here. I get it. In my past life, this made Mom prejudiced against me, convinced I lacked compassion. Violet escalated her accusations, until Mom was completely disappointed in me, showering all her love on Violet alone. This time, I thought I'm going to get blamed again. No matter what I say, they won't listen. I should just stay quiet. Mom's eyes held guilt and sadness as she looked at me. Then slap. Mom's hand struck Violet's face hard, stunning everyone. Dad stood frozen, unable to process what happened. Mom's voice shook with fury. I saw clearly you fell on purpose. You're framing Amber. No wonder your previous adoptive family returned you. Pitiful people have hateful qualities. Adopting Violet was Dad's idea. Of course. He claimed he met a poor girl at an orphanage during charity work, previously adopted but mistreated. He wanted to rescue her. He said having another girl would give me a companion. Mom agreed after Dad's persistent pleading. Dad and Violet had prepared everything perfectly. They didn't expect to be exposed on day one. Dad had deliberately blocked Mom's view, worried she'd see the truth. Violet stammered, helplessly, looking to Dad for rescue. Dad quickly explained Violet's been mistreated and lacks security. She probably misunderstood what happened. It's all a misunderstanding. You're overreacting and scaring the poor child. Mom prepared to expose Dad's scheme. Then she heard my thoughts again. If I expose Dad now, he won't admit it. Worse, it'll alert him. He controls so many company shares. Mom hesitated. My brothers will definitely side with Dad. He's always been the fun parent, while Mom's been strict. If things blow up, they might even help him. Mom fell silent, apparently agreeing with my reasoning. She forced down her anger. I don't want this happening again. Violet nodded obediently, still looking pitiful. Mrs. Chun, take her to her room. Mom ordered the housekeeper. Mrs. Chun led Violet upstairs. Dad tried explaining to Mom, hoping to make her accept and love Violet faster. But Mom grabbed my hand and walked past him without looking back. Dad stood bewildered. Usually his sweet talk made Mom happy. Why was she suddenly cold to him? I glanced back at his confused expression and smiled coldly. He had no idea his good days were ending. Mom brought me to my room. She studied me seriously. Amber, tell me, do you know something about your father? My expression stayed innocent. I shook my head. I don't know. But I thought I can't tell her. She'll be so disappointed. Last life I saw Dad with another woman and told Mom. She said I was making things up. Mom said I lacked compassion. That just because as Dad favored Violet more, I wanted to cause trouble. I'm so scared Mom won't love me anymore. Tears filled Mom's eyes instantly, her face showing heartbreak and guilt. Amber, you're my daughter. I love you more than anything in this world. I love you too, Mom. Deeply. Moved. I threw myself into her arms. Mom didn't force me to say more. But afterward, I clearly felt Mom growing distant from both Dad and Violet. Whenever Violet tried being friendly, Mom ignored her. When Dad tried pleasing Mom, she barely responded. Mom even started going to the company more often, though she rarely went before. Dad and Violet grew noticeably anxious. After dinner, they hid in a corner whispering. Violet said, Dad, you said that woman was easy to please. But no matter what I do, she's cold to me. Why? Dad replied, I don't know either. She's like a different person. Maybe menopause is starting. Bad mood. Forget her. Tomorrow your second brother comes home for winter break. He's an idiot. Win him over first, okay? Violet agreed. Replace Amber's position in this family as quickly as possible. Once you're everyone's favorite, getting their fortune will be easy. Then we can bring your real mother here to enjoy the good life. Dad instructed. Don't worry, Dad. Amber's a sheltered fool. How could she compete with me? I'll have everyone's love soon. Violet said confidently. In my past life, she was right. I trusted Violet completely. Under Dad's manipulation, I treated her like a real sister. But she constantly schemed against me, framing me until everyone thought I was selfish. Eventually, they only loved her. This life her luck had run out. Next day at noon, Marcus came home for winter break. He was a 200-pound guy who never exercised and only ate junk food. He didn't study either, just played video games all day. His college admission was bought with family money. To outsiders, Marcus was completely useless. Mom never imagined he'd turn out this way, but she'd focused so much energy on Ethan's education that Dad mainly raised Marcus. Dad always told Marcus that with Ethan as the family star, he just needed to be a carefree, rich kid. Gradually, Marcus lost all ambition, just coasting through life. Violet rushed to greet him. First, she leaned close to his ear whispering, Dad told me you love chips, fried chicken, spicy snacks and instant noodles. I bought everything and put it in your room, plus your favorite soda. Don't tell Mom, okay? I saw a light flash in Marcus's eyes. Mom banned this stuff from the house. Even checked Marcus's luggage when he came home, never giving him a chance to eat these foods. Dad used to secretly buy them. Now Violet had taken over. I clearly felt Marcus develop instant fondness for Violet, until he heard my thoughts. Marcus looked at the mountain of fried chicken and spicy snacks Violet had piled in his room. In the past he would have hugged her, calling her the best sister ever. He would have locked the door and gorged himself until he fell into a greasy stupor, exactly as Dad planned. I stood in the doorway, watching him. Poor Marcus, my voice echoed in his head, cold and clear. He thinks this is love. He doesn't realize Dad is feeding him like a pig for slaughter. Every calorie is a nail in his coffin. Dad knows Marcus has a heart condition that hasn't surfaced yet, the same one Grandpa had. If he keeps eating like this and never exercises, he'll have a stroke by 25. That's why Dad spoils him. A dead or disabled son can't claim his share of the inheritance. He'll be out of the way, leaving everything for Violet. Marcus's hand, reaching for a drumstick, froze. His face went from a happy flush to a deathly pale white. He looked at the chicken, then at Violet, who was beaming with a sisterly smile. Marcus? What's wrong? Isn't this your favorite? Violet asked, her voice like honey. She's so proud of herself, I thought. She even sprinkled extra MSG and salt on those, didn't she? Dad told her it's the fastest way to make someone addicted. In my last life, Marcus died of a massive heart attack in a filthy internet cafe. Dad didn't even cry. He just asked the lawyer how soon the life insurance would pay out. Suddenly Marcus's phone, the one he spent 16 hours a day on, began to vibrate violently in his hand. It grew hot, then began to smoke. Marcus didn't drop it. His rage was so intense it felt like the air in the room was ionizing. Get out, Marcus whispered. What? Violet blinked. Marcus, I just wanted to. I said get out. Marcus screamed. He grabbed the bucket of chicken and hurled it against the wall. He smashed his gaming phone onto the floor, the screen shattering into 1,000 pieces. Violet fled the room, terrified. Marcus turned to me. His chest was heaving. He looked at me with eyes full of tears and a terrifying clarity. Is it true, Amber? Is it all true? I didn't speak. I just looked at him with pity. I can't tell him I'm reborn. He has to choose to save himself. Marcus didn't need me to speak. He had heard enough. That night, for the first time in 10 years, Marcus didn't eat dinner. He went for a run until he threw up, and then he spent the night researching business law. Next was Ethan, our eldest brother. Once a genius athlete and a top-tier scholar, he was now a shadow of a man, confined to a wheelchair after a hit-and-run 3 years ago. I went to his study. The room smelled of old paper and bitterness. Ethan sat by the window, staring out at the garden. "Amber," he said without turning. "The house is loud today. Mom is acting strange. Marcus is acting strange. And you are the strangest of all." He's so sharp, I thought. Even broken, Ethan is the most dangerous person in this family. That's why Dad had to break his legs. The driver who hit him wasn't a drunk. He was a professional hired by Dad's mistress's brother. Dad paid him $2 million from Mom's secret account to ensure Ethan would never walk again. He wanted Ethan's spirit crushed so he wouldn't take over the company. The sound of a pen snapping echoed in the quiet room. Ethan's wheelchair creaked as he gripped the armrests. I saw a thin wisp of smoke rising from his hair. Not from fire, but from the sheer, burning intensity of his blood pressure spiking. If Ethan knew the driver is currently living in a villa in the suburbs, funded by Dad's charity foundation, he'd probably kill someone, I mused silently. Dad visits him every month to make sure he stays quiet. They laugh about the tragedy over expensive whiskey. Ethan turned his chair. His face was a mask of cold, calculated fury. He wasn't crying. He was vibrating with a murderous energy. "Amber," he said, his voice dropping to a low guttural growl. "Which villa?" I blinked, pretending not to understand. "The one at the North Hills Development. Unit 402. The title is under a shell company called Violet Skies." How poetic. Ethan closed his eyes. When he opened them, the hopelessness was gone. In its place was the predator he used to be. "Go play, Amber. I have some phone calls to make." Dad and Violet were oblivious. They thought Mom's coldness was just a phase. At dinner, Dad tried to play the hero again. "Since everyone is home, I've decided to host a gala next week. It's to officially introduce Violet to our social circle as our adopted daughter." Mom set her chopsticks down with a sharp clack. "No." Dad froze. "Honey, we already discussed this. It's about being charitable. It'll look great for the company's PR. PR? I thought. He means he wants to introduce his mistress as the event coordinator, so he can flaunt both his daughters and his lover under Mom's nose. He's already planning to announce a massive donation to the orphanage, which is actually a front for laundering Mom's money into his private account. I said no, Mom repeated, her voice like ice. "In fact, I've been looking at the company books, David. There are some discrepancies. Millions of dollars labeled as charity that seem to vanish into thin air." Dad's face paled. I can explain that. Business is complicated, you know." "Is it?" Ethan chimed in, rolling his wheelchair to the table. He looked stronger than he had in years. "Because I did some digging today. It turns out that charity goes to a shell company. Violet Skies. Named after our new sister. Quite a coincidence." Violet gasped, her fork falling to the floor. I don't know anything about that." "Of course she does," I thought. "She has the bank card in her bag right now. Dad gave it to her for her allowance. She's been bragging to her secret boyfriend about how she's going to be a billionaire soon." Marcus stood up, his 200-pound frame looking imposing for the first time. "Give me the bag, Violet." "What? No. This is an invasion of privacy." Violet shrieked. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You're all bullying this poor girl. Amber, this is your fault, isn't it? You've been whispering poison into their ears." "He's going to hit me," I thought calmly. "In the last life, this was when he slapped me so hard I lost a tooth. Then he locked me in the attic for 3 days without food." Dad lunged across the table, his hand raised. But he never reached me. Marcus caught Dad's wrist midair. The strength of a son who had finally found a reason to fight was greater than the strength of a father who had spent his life lying. "Don't touch her," Marcus growled. The gala happened, but not the way Dad intended. Mom invited the police and the board of directors to the house instead of socialites. Dad was trapped. He tried to run, grabbing Violet and his briefcase full of stolen documents. He headed for the roof of our apartment building, thinking his mistress was waiting in a getaway car in the alley. We followed him. The wind howled on the 13th floor balcony, the same place where in another life he had pushed me to my death. "Stay back," Dad screamed, holding Violet in front of him like a shield. "I built this family. I deserve this money. Your mother is a cold, heartless woman who never understood me." He's waiting for Sarah, I thought. His mistress. He thinks she's coming to save him. He doesn't know Ethan found her first. Sarah isn't coming. She took the remaining money she'd already bled from him and fled to another country this morning. She never loved him. She just loved the fortune he was stealing from us. Dad's eyes widened. "Sarah? No. She wouldn't." "She would, David," Mom said, walking onto the balcony. She looked regal, her eyes filled with a cold finality. "Because you attract exactly what you are, a parasite." Violet was crying, But this time nobody felt compassion. She looked at Dad. Where is she? Where is my mom? She's gone, Violet, I said aloud for the first time. My voice was soft, but it carried in the wind. Just like your future. Dad looked at the edge of the balcony. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a sudden, horrific realization. You. How do you know everything? Who are you? I'm the ghost of the daughter you murdered, I thought. I'm the justice you thought you could outrun. Dad stepped back, his heel catching on the ledge. For a moment he teetered, just as I had. Violet reached for him. But her trembling bird act was her undoing. She was too weak, too focused on herself. She tripped, and instead of pulling him back, she pushed him. Dad fell. There was no instant death this time. He hit the safety netting 2 floors down. A net he had installed himself a year ago when he was worried about accidents. He survived, but as the police swarmed the building, he was paralyzed from the waist down. A poetic echo of the fate he had forced upon Ethan. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Violet was sent to a juvenile detention center for her role in the embezzlement and fraud schemes. Without Dad's protection, she was just another girl with a history of behavioral issues. Mom took full control of the company. With Ethan's genius back in play, he started physical therapy and took over the legal and tech departments. The company flourished. Marcus lost the weight, not through magic, but through hard work and the fear of the pig slaughter I had planted in his mind. He became a fitness advocate and a disciplined student, eventually finding a passion for architecture. One evening, we sat in the garden. It was quiet. The voices in their heads had grown silent, because I no longer had secrets to keep. Mom looked at me, taking my hand. This time, her hand didn't shake. Amber, she whispered. I heard you. All of it. I don't know how, and I don't know why, but thank you for saving us. I smiled, looking up at the 13th floor. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over our home. You're welcome, Mom, I thought. But you saved yourselves. I just gave you the truth. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt alive. And for the first time, the thoughts in my head were finally my own. The end.